October 16th, 1859, abolitionist John Brown leads 21 men on a raid of a federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. That happened on October 16th. And today I am recording this on October 16th, 2024. Let's just start out with Genesis. Genesis 1, chapter 1, verse 3 to 4. Let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. Genesis 1:10. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called the seas. And then God saw that it was good. Genesis 1:12. The earth brought forth vegetables, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds, and trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its kind. Again, God saw that it was good. Genesis 1:18. And God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And guess what? God saw that it was good. So he's seeing light as good. He's seeing vegetables as good. He's seeing earth as good. Carry on. Genesis 1:21. So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. Again, God saw that it was good. Genesis 1:25. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and cattle according to their kinds, and everything that creeps upon the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Genesis 1:26, man is made in the image of God. Genesis 1:27, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female he created them. Genesis 1:31, God saw everything he had made, and behold, it was very good. That was right after he talked about creating man and woman. So over and over again in Genesis, it's saying that God created all the fish in the sea, all the animals on the earth, all the damn bugs, all the animals, all the fish. And he created the earth itself, light, and the vegetables, and the trees, and the birds. And he created man. And when he looked at everything that he had created, it was good. It was good. So you have Hobbes, who says that man is born evil, and that's why you need Leviathan to crack down. But then you have Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who says that man is born good, and so therefore we need to water and fertilize that natural instinct for us to be good. What do I think? I think it's a balance. I think that we are born with the capacity to do good or to do evil at any moment of time. At any moment of time, you could do evil or you could do good. And so you feed the wolf, the good wolf. By feeding the good wolf, then that makes you good more often. Excellence is a habit, so you got to feed that good wolf. Everybody has that evil in them. Everybody has that goodness in them. Now, the main quote that people quote when they talk about natural law in the Bible is from Romans. And this is Paul. Paul wrote the book of Romans. And they're talking about the Gentiles. This is Romans 2:14-15. Here's the quote. When Gentiles who have not the law do by nature what the law requires, they are a law to themselves. Even though they do not have the law, they show that what the law requires is written on their hearts, while their conscience also bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse or perhaps excuse them on that day when, according to my gospel, God judges the secrets of men by Christ Jesus. So you know what's good or what's bad. If you're not into Judaism, if you're not into Christianity, if you're a Gentile, that's what a Gentile is. Not a Christian, not into Judaism. They are somebody without religion. And yet they should know what is right and what is wrong. They should know what is right and what is wrong. Why is that? Because God has already printed a consciousness into their own hearts. They already know what is wrong and what is right. They have the ability to feel, to think. They have reason. They have rationality. And that's what natural law is. Natural law is rational law. That which makes logical sense. That is natural law. Natural law is also the moral moral law. Natural law is rational law. Natural law is moral law. Natural law is also man's participation in eternal law. Now, is it divine law? Can we actually get into the mind of God? I go back and forth on it. Somebody told me with God's grace we can figure out the mind of God. But St. Thomas Aquinas said, no, we can never truly know the mind of God. We can get close with eternal law, which I think actually kind of settles it for me. Whether we could get into divine law, whether we can, that's pretty presumptuous, wouldn't it? Oh, you know that fourth degree, that fourth dimensional creature that created everything? I know what that person thinks. I know what that entity thinks, and what that entity thinks is this. So, when it comes to natural law is rational law, natural law is moral law, natural law is man's participation in eternal law. Now listen to how brilliant that is. The natural law is a participation in the eternal law. The reason why I think that gets me to basically the same spot as somebody who would think that they know divine law. Eternal law is the most divine law that man can get to. And what is eternal law? It's law that will be law until eternity. Thou shalt not murder. That's going to be an eternal law. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not rape. Thou shalt not assault. These are eternal laws. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. These are eternal laws. An eye for an eye. These are eternal laws. So I want to, I want to read a passage from Hobbes. Hobbes says that if we don't have a Leviathan, if we don't have an authority to resolve our disputes, what's going to happen is the bad wolf is going to be fed by the brutish men, and we're just going to be at war with each other all the time. And so this is the state of nature for Hobbes, which is pretty much the opposite of the Garden of Eden. But the Garden of Eden, man had everything that he could possibly want. So here is what Hobbes says the state of nature is. Whatsoever therefore is consequent to a time of war, where every man is enemy to every man, the same is consequent to the time wherein men live without other security than what their own strength and their own invention shall furnish them withal. In such condition there is no place for industry, because the fruit thereof is uncertain, and consequently no culture of the earth, no navigation, nor use of the commodities that may be imported by sea, no commodious building, no instruments of moving and removing such things as require much force, no knowledge of the face of the earth, no account of time, no arts, no letters, no society, and which is the worst of all, continual fear, and the danger of violent death in the life of man, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. And the life of man, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Now he's going to use this state of war, which is, he says, is the natural, the state of nature. And since we have the state of nature as a state of war, well, we're going to have to figure something else out, because we don't want to just be warring against each other. Now that's a big, strong Leviathan state, but it's also natural law. So if you just got, say, there's man, and they're living in the jungle, well, you could go to war with each other until you all have short, brutish, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short lives. You could go to war with each other, or you could sit down with your own rationality and just come up with, 10 to 20 laws that you both agree with. If you could come up with the 10 to 20 laws that you both agree with, then we're starting to build a social contract. And then the social contract expands to a constitution with the Commonwealth and the people. Or the sovereign. He's a big royalist, and a lot of Hobbes is kind of, I think, bullshit. But when it comes to his natural laws, his 19 natural laws, they are genius. They're absolute genius. So natural law is rational law. Natural law is moral law, because we can reasonably deduce what is moral and what is not moral. And we really don't even need a government at all in order to do that. And then the civil law is the government kind of imposing their will upon us. Natural law is man's participation in eternal law. I just love how that sounds. Natural law is the participation in eternal law. Natural law is the participation in eternal law. The Right Response Ministries made that connection for me, and it kind of was mind-blowing to me. What? The natural law is moral law? The natural law is rational law. I understood that. You got jungle law, right? It's a war against everybody, so you got the jungle law. And then when you start to talk to other people about what rational laws are, well, then that is natural law. What is reasonable to you, the rights that you give to yourself, you have to give to others. 2 people, 3 people, a group of people, they all get together and say, well, you have a right to defend yourself. You have a right to enter into a contract and for that contract to be enforced. Those are the first 2 laws of Hobbes. Now, what is common sense? What is moral law? What is the rational law that comes from the Bible? Well, there's a lot of rational law that comes from the Bible. You got Exodus. You got justice is eye for an eye and a stripe for a stripe. And then you got the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments, you got the first tablet and then the second tablet. The second tablet is 100%, clearly obvious and true for civilization. And the first tablet, I've actually came back around to all of these things. And I reject that the first tablet is you have to, worship the invisible man in the clouds. But if you believe God to be the great spirit of ultimate goodness, if you believe God to be the great spirit of ultimate goodness, then the first tablet makes sense as well. So let's do eye for an eye first. In Leviticus 24, 17 to 22. What does it say in Leviticus 24, chapter 24, verses 17 to 22? Anyone who takes the life of a human being is to be put to death. Anyone who takes the life of someone's animal must make restitution, life for life. Anyone who injures their neighbor is to be injured in the same manner. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The one who has inflicted the injury must suffer the same injury. Whoever kills an animal must make restitution, but whoever kills a human being is to be put to death. You are to have the same law for the foreigner and the native born. I am the Lord your God. You know what? I've actually believed in eye for an eye. And there are 2 passages for eye for an eye. Wasn't there something in, I want to say Exodus. Didn't Exodus have something? Exodus 21, 24. Let's take a look at Exodus 21 to 24. Or Exodus 21, and then it said 24 to some, here we go. Okay, yes. If people are fighting, and they hit a pregnant woman, and she gives birth prematurely, but there is no serious injury, the offender must be fined whatever the woman's husband demands and the court allows. But if there is serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. If she gives birth prematurely, so if people are fighting, and you hit a pregnant woman, and she gives birth prematurely, but there's no serious injury, then you're fined with what the husband wants and the court allows. But if there's serious injury, then you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, and bruise for bruise. So those things are obvious. That just makes sense. It's almost like the good wolf and the bad wolf. You want evil done, you don't want evil done to you, then don't do evil. If you do evil, then you shouldn't expect evil to happen right back to you. Hey, I stole $1,000 from him. Then he stole $1,000 from me. Is that really surprising to you? And if you want people to treat you well, then you treat other people well. In order to get a friend, you got to be a friend. So that's an eye for an eye. An eye for an eye to me is justice. An eye for an eye, a stripe for a stripe, a foot for a foot, tooth for tooth, fracture for fracture. That is justice. Now Hobbes, he says in his 7th law of nature, the 7th law of nature, remember Hobbes has got 19 laws of nature, plus some other ones I've been able to find here and there, but I can never get them all compiled into one list and say, hey, here are the 30 commandments of Hobbes. And these commandments are so much stronger when you have the authority of God, coming back to back you up. So you have a right to defend yourself. Imagine if God says you have a right to defend yourself. God says it. And so an eye for an eye, Hobbes adds to the eye for an eye passage. He says that men look not at the greatness of the evil past, but the greatness of the good to follow. So that just makes you think more forward thinking. And that could dole out better or worse punishments. It could be more merciful and it could be more damaging. Well, we could, give this person a terrible punishment, or we could just be merciful. But let's think about the future. Let's think about the future. The goodness, the greatness of the good to follow. Yeah, you're pissed off, you've been injured, and it makes you mad. But let's think of the greatness of the good to follow. What would happen if we give them mercy? What would happen if we give them greater punishment? Now, the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments are also wonderfully, incredibly logical, and they make sense. Let's start out with the second tablet. This comes from Exodus 20, verses 12 to 21. Exodus 20, verses 12 to 21. I also saw Deuteronomy had some sort of eye for an eye quote too. Should I check out Deuteronomy? Let's just check out Deuteronomy real quick. So eye for an eye, it says Exodus 21:24, Leviticus 24:20, and Deuteronomy 19 to 21. So we'll just check it out real quick. When the Lord, let's see, 19 to 21, no, 19:21, so we'll just go straight to 21. So the rest of the people, this is 20, I just went one sentence behind. The rest of the people will hear of this and be afraid, and never again will such an evil thing be done amongst you. Show no pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Now this actually goes to witnesses. Let's read about witnesses. One witness is not enough to convict anyone accused of any crime or offense that they may have committed. A matter must be established by the testimony of at least 2 or 3 witnesses. If a malicious witness takes the stand to accuse someone of a crime, the 2 people involved in the dispute must stand in the presence of the Lord before the priest and the judges who are in office at the time. The judges must make a thorough investigation, and if the witness proves to be a liar, giving false testimony against a fellow Israelite, then do to the false witness as that witness intended to do to the other party. Holy shit, that's Hammurabi Code. The Hammurabi Code says if you say that person stole $1,000 from you and therefore you want them to be put into jail, but it turns out they didn't steal $1,000 and you were lying and it's caught that you're lying, then you got to do the time in jail that you wanted that other person to do. That's logical, that's reasonable, that's rational law. And rational law is natural law. The rest of the people will hear of this and be afraid, and never again will such an evil thing be done among you. Show no pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, and foot for foot. So the 10 Commandments is this. 20, 12 to 21. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Egypt, so you may live long in the land of Egypt, I thought. So there's different interpretations. I like honor thy father and thy mother, give them honor, but I think that honor thy family is better. Honor thy brother and thy sister, honor thy son and thy daughter, honor thy father and thy mother. Honor the family. We want civilization to persist. Okay, it's not just the 2 assholes having sex and then putting dominion upon everybody else. They got relationships among themselves and their people too. So it begins a little rocky, but because we're going to honor the family, then okay, we're going to honor brother and sister, son and daughter, so therefore we can honor father and mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. When the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear, and they stayed at a distance and said to Moses, "Speak to us yourself and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us or we will die." Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid. God has come to test you, so that the fear of God will be with you to keep you from sinning." The people remained at a distance while Moses approached the thick darkness where God was. So let's go back to the second tablet. Thou shalt not murder. That's eternal law. That's eternal law. Thou shalt honor thy family. That's eternal law. When it comes to the basic political unit
of a society, I can only think of two things: the union, or maybe the corporate union or whatever, but the union of workers that work together, or the family. Those are the two basic political units of a society. And it's natural law in terms of its nature, right? Every society is going to have their families. And so honor thy mother and father, brother and sister, son and daughter. Thou shalt not murder. Eternal law, eternal law. Thou shalt not commit adultery. That's an interesting one. We'll come back to that one. Thou shalt not steal. Again, eternal law. Thou shalt not give false testimony against your neighbor. Eternal law. When will perjury against somebody, making a false accusation against somebody else, ever be good? It will never be good. That's eternal law. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, or his wife, or his male or female servants, his ox, donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. So don't covet your neighbor's wife. Don't covet your neighbor's stuff. All these are rational law. All these are incredible, smart, rational law. They're saying not only should you not steal, it's that person's property. You don't take other people's property. Now, there's always exceptions to the rules, right? Reasonable exceptions to the rules. If you're starving, if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, especially if you have thirsty and hungry children and you have no shelter, find shelter. Find shelter for your children. Get water and food for yourself and for your family. But in general, thou shalt not steal. Especially, don't steal from one of the commoners, from an average, American, an average neighbor. Maybe some big rich person, steal from the rich, give to the poor, some big nameless, faceless corporation. Maybe. You got to tell me the circumstances. But the 10 Commandments are incomplete because they don't say don't rape, and they don't say don't assault. And I like don't assault because assault is both sexual assault and physical assault. Keep your damn hands to yourself. So, thou shalt not assault, thou shalt not rape, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. I'd like to think that those are the four, main laws, the moral laws. Those are the four easy laws that we can say, okay, we're beginning a civilization, we're beginning a society, so let's just have 4 laws that we all have to obey. What, he just jaywalked? What, he doesn't have a seatbelt on? Give me a fucking break. If there's no injury, then there is no case. The point of the law is to prevent one person from injuring another person. These are the major crimes. These are the big crimes. These are the felonies. These are the mortal sins. Now, I said we're going to go back to thou shalt not commit adultery. That is kind of injurious, but it also isn't. You can divorce. So why would you not divorce before committing adultery? By committing adultery, you kind of make adulterers out of everybody, right? And so I feel like thou shalt not commit adultery, but as free agents, free association, you should divorce, since the option is there to divorce, so you don't have to commit. They used to stone people for committing adultery. So when I think of society and civilization, you want strong families. Since you want strong families, then you shouldn't commit adultery, because that's going to put a distrust in between the mother and the father, or the romantic couple, the starting family, the family that's beginning. So that's something you shouldn't do. Should it have the force of the law, and how much of the force of the law should it be applied to it? I'm not for sure. I've actually seen some circumstances when the person cheats outside of their union, their marriage, and it actually makes them stronger. It makes them stronger. So, thou shalt not commit adultery. That's a good rule. There's exceptions. But thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not give false testimony, and thou shalt not even want to do any of those things. Don't steal anything that your neighbor has. Don't even want to steal. Don't even want to murder. Don't even want to commit adultery, and don't even want to give false testimony against your neighbor. Now let's go back to the first tablet, Exodus 1 through 11. And God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. That's where the chosen people came from. When you were the oppressed people, well, now you're the chosen people. When you get to Judges, well, God does not look favorably upon Israel. You did not do good in the sight of the Lord, Israel. You're not doing good in the sight of the Lord, Israel. So when it comes to being God's chosen people are the oppressed, the downtrodden, the poor, and the marginalized. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Now, I don't believe in God. I don't believe there's an invisible man up in the clouds. I don't believe there's an invisible man in the clouds who's looking down upon me, just smiling like a goofy-ass, creepy son of a bitch trying to get into my business. But I do believe in the great spirit of ultimate goodness. You feed the good wolf. You stay committed to goodness, and you feed the good wolf. And so everybody's got a bad wolf and a good wolf into them. The great spirit, that's a Native American proverb, ultimate goodness. That's just my understanding of Thomas Aquinas and natural law. So let's presume that God isn't just energy, but the good energy, the great spirit of ultimate goodness. The greatest, the best, the goodest energy that's out there. And so if you're going to use that phrase, the great spirit of ultimate goodness, which I encourage you, and you can freely use it, it's a creation of my own, but it's brilliant and it's smart and it's how we all should be, because we don't need a balance of good and evil. We don't need an Anakin Skywalker. We need utilitarianism. So we need good for the most of the people. How much evil do people need to have? How much hardship and bad things do people need to know in order to figure out that evil is bad and goodness is good? So when I think of the great spirit of ultimate goodness, you shouldn't just say that phrase in vain. It's too lengthy, so it's kind of hard to say that phrase in vain. So when I talk about God, that's precisely what I'm talking about. It's easy just to, God damn, Jesus Christ, this and that. Remember to keep the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You should take a break, whether it's on Sunday. Make your own Sabbath. Make it Wednesday or some shit. But when it comes to the God thing, so I'm the Lord your God. There's one God. There's one true God. And that's the God of the great spirit of ultimate goodness, who brought the Jewish folks out of Egypt, the great spirit of ultimate goodness. Why would you need to have any other gods besides the great spirit of ultimate goodness? You shall not make yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven or above or the earth. Do not worship things. Do not worship property. Don't worship people. Worship the ideal, and the ideal is the one true God. The ideal of the one true God is the great spirit of ultimate goodness. Don't bow down to a golden calf. Don't bow down to man or woman. Bow down to your own conscience. Bow down to natural law. Bow down to your ideals. Do your ideals not make a mockery of you all? So if you listen to the great spirit of ultimate goodness, again, this is rational law, natural law. That's going to be a good society for generations upon generations. That's going to be a good civilization and a good society. Do you need to stone somebody who says, fuck the great spirit of ultimate goodness? I don't think you need to go that far with it. But it does show a propensity for evil. The great spirit of ultimate goodness. Yeah, you could be addicted to sin. You could be addicted to evil. So why would you commit to goodness? Why would you commit to any morality or virtues? Why have any virtues at all? Why read the first sentence of the preamble of the Constitution? If you're committed to evil, then you're not going to give a damn about the 6 good end objects of the preamble to the U.S. Constitution. So all those rules make sense. Take a break. Think about the great spirit of ultimate goodness. Use that day to take a break and then work real hard for the next 6 days. Do not have any other gods besides the great spirit of ultimate goodness. What other gods? What, Hercules, Zeus, Athena? What other gods could you possibly need? Just some Buddha? Just some crazy crap you make up? Snakes? The flowers? The sun? The sun, George Carlin says that makes more sense to worship than the invisible man in the clouds. So the first tablet makes sense to me if you use the great spirit of ultimate goodness. If you use the great spirit of ultimate goodness, then the first tablet makes sense. The second tablet is a good basis for civilization. And if you have a decent definition of God, such as the great spirit of ultimate goodness, well, you're on your way. You're on your way. This is part 1. We'll do part 2 coming up.